Take a seat and relax because it's League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you for joining us. As always, we went through power rankings for the three big regions that we always do, but now we got a special countdown, a special ranking that we're going to be doing going forward, talking about global power rankings, the top 10 teams on the Rift right now across all regions. It's not restricted to NA, not to Europe, not to Korea, not to China. All the big boys will be on here and we'll count down 10 to 1, and to absolutely nobody's surprise, even though IG are the defending champs, Griffin. I don't think you can argue whatever kind of power ranking you're coming up with, unless you're ranking the worst teams right now. Griffin will come in at number 1, and that's exactly who we have on the top spot for this week's global power rankings. Now, the one confusing thing and kind of hard to gauge if we're doing all these different regions together is just simply the amount of games that these different squads will have played, especially in China, when some teams have played 5 games, some have only played 2, and with the LCK and the LPL on their break right now, their holiday break, there's going to be a while before they're playing any more games. But Griffin in at number 1, and IG, they're the defending world champions. They didn't make a roster move. Yes, they already have a loss, and throughout 2018, they've only had 1 series loss per split, so they got to go undefeated the rest of the way if they want to match that. But Rookie is still great. The Shy is splitting time with Duke, as he did all regular season in 2018. IG still looking like right now the best team in China, especially because RNG's only played 2 games, and Uzi has not played in either. He's still not going to be coming back until much later on in the split. So IG in at number 2. G2 Esports. They got the big upgrades in the offseason. There were some serious question marks how this role swap was actually going to work, but it's worked out pretty darn well so far. 6-0 start, and you might say 3rd seems a little bit insane for an EU team, but remember how good Europe did at the World Championship. And yes, G2, they haven't had the cleanest of wins by any stretch, especially some of the XL games they had, or the XL game, they had a rough start against SK Gaming, but no team in the LEC, no team in the West can turn a game around as quickly as G2. And frankly, at times, it looks like they're playing with their food on the Rift. You know they're going to eventually win most of these matchups. You're pretty confident they're going to do so. A couple of team fights go their way and they completely snowball the game out of control. With the players that are on this roster, I think they just like fighting nonstop and a little bit of solo queue mentality, probably to the detriment of the team, that they just want to keep racking up kills, keep padding those stats, and that's exactly what they do. But there's pretty much no doubt in the majority of these games for G2. And in the end, you can say, again, save for that XL game, it ends up being a dominant win in the favor of G2 Esports, and they really look like a force to be reckoned with in Europe, and that's why they're the highest ranking Western team in the top 3, which is pretty incredible. We're still very early on in the spring split, so I'm sure these rankings will change quite a bit as the weeks progress and go forward, and really just teams are playing more games. In at number 4 is Fun plus Phoenix, who are undefeated in the LPL right now at 4-0, and you might, if you're not paying attention to the LPL, you will definitely be saying, who the heck is Fun plus Phoenix? It's a fun name, but who's on this roster? How are they 4-0? Have they beaten anyone good? Why are they so high on the global power rankings? Well, they have Doinby in the mid lane, who it was rumored he's going to retire to start streaming or pursue streaming full time. He hasn't done that, and he's still performing at a fantastic level. He is super carry Doinby so far. 4-0, they got a big win. They've beaten JD Gaming, who handed IG their only loss on the season so far. They've looked pretty decent with the likes of Loken going on there, and they also have Levi, who's not been playing because Flawless has been the better jungler. And the biggest win of the split so far for Fun Plus came against Suning Gaming in a insane 3-game set that was very back and forth, a lot of kills. Doinby was fantastic, and the rest of the boys on Fun Plus as well, because Suning up until that point was looking like one of, if not the best team in the LPL alongside IG. But FunPlus took them down in a really fantastic, well-played third game. They have been a surprise team in the LPL so far. They still haven't gone up against some of the big names in China yet, but again, we are early on in the spring split. But right now, FunPlus looks like a very exciting team to check out in China, and Doin B is still doing B things on the Rift. He's one of the most exciting players in China, and FunPlus, surprise squad, they are looking very good. Rounding out the top 5, obviously, you've got to talk about Sandbox Gaming. If you're talking the LCK, they took a game off of Griffin. They've already beaten SKT in a best of. I don't think anyone would have thought, even after week 1 or 2, that Sandbox would be here. If you're talking a global power ranking, they're just in the top 5, but these guys have proven that they're for real. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot and potentially a pretty darn high seeding, top 3 maybe, to skip some of those best ofs when the playoffs actually come around. But Dove and Summit have been fantastic in those solo lanes. On Fleek is one of the most aggressive junglers that we have in the LCK right now. Sandbox Gaming are for real, and they've looked better than Damwon. They went head-to-head. That was the hyped-up rookie squad coming in, but right now, Sandbox are the hyped-up young squad coming into the LCK, so they're in at number 5. Suning, we talked about them with Maple and Sword Art coming over. That one loss is to FunPlus Phoenix, and that's why they're a couple spots below them. But before that, they were dominating all their matchups in the LPL. And yes, they didn't play against, really they played mostly lower tier teams. They haven't played any of the great teams except for FunPlus, who they matched up against. And it was a close, hard-fought series, but Suning did end up falling. So they come in at number 6. But Maple and Sword Art have fit seamlessly onto this squad along with SMLZ and the solo lanes. Zhao is fantastic. He almost single-handedly saved that series for Suning, but they're in at number 6. SK Telecom, 4-2. Week 3 had their ultimate demise at the hands of Griffin, where they got completely bodied by them. But the talent on this roster, and you've still seen moments of the potential that this squad can be one of the best teams in the world. They're still deserving of a top 10 spot just because, really, of that glimpses, those few glimpses of potential that we've seen. And they have still put together some seriously good best of series. That other loss that they had at the hands of Sandbox, some extremely questionable drafting from them. I think they're still kind of figuring out what the optimal picks in the meta are going to be, and the majority of those picks are going to change in 9.3, by the way, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But SKT, they're in at number 7. I expect as the weeks progress here in the LCK that they're going to be higher on these rankings. And how can someone even be in the top 10 when they got so destroyed in a best of a 2-0 sweep by Griffin? Well, Griffin is destroying pretty much everyone in the LCK in 2-0 sweeps, trying to speed run the entire spring split. So that's not a huge anomaly to see out of SKT. They still look like one of the top 3 teams in Korea right now. So they're in at number 7. And at number 8, we finally have the first and only team from North America. And again, keep in mind, they've only played 4 games in NA. Even in the LPL and the LCK, when some teams are, 4-1 or 4-0, they've still played best of 3. So they've played a lot more games than Liquid. Liquid has only played 4 games, but they look like a class above the rest of North America right now in the LCS. Far and away the best team there. And I think that this is a team that could stay in the top 10 for the global rankings as the season is progressing. Maybe even climb a few spots, because much like Maple and Sword Art seeming to fit in seamlessly on Suning, Jensen and Core JJ in particular have completely shattered NA expectations so far and seem to have fit in perfectly on that squad. The 4th LPL team on this ranking comes in the form of Top Sports, who were kind of the joke of the league in 2018. They had one of the worst splits in spring. Marin came in and it looked like it was helping them for a bit, that they were still underwhelming. Top Sports are 3-1. Their only loss was to the defending world champions in IG. And even though they got swept in that series, they put up a good fight. It was very back and forth. The player to watch on this squad is obviously Knight in the mid lane. The young phenom so far has lived up to the hype around him. People have been waiting for over a year to see this guy hit the main stage. We're finally seeing it in the LPL, and he has been putting on a show for this team. They also got in XX in the jungle, who's been performing very well. 369 in the top lane. They've put up some fantastic best of series. Again, it's been against some of the lower tier teams so far in the LPL, which is why they're in at number 9. But this is another team to pay attention to in China. And for RNG, who's obviously missing from this list so far, they're going to have their work cut out for them, because there are way better teams in China than we saw in 2018. EDG, RNG, you don't just have a free pass to a deep playoff run anymore, because there's a lot of other guys in China stepping up. And finally, number 10 was Schalke on that Global Power Rankings. The second EU team, they have looked fantastic the last 2 weeks, really putting on some clean victories. Upset Abadaga looked fantastic. Otawamne is returning to his former glory, and Memento finally has a good team around him, and he's really been able to shine. So I think Schalke very deserving of coming in that 10th spot on our Global Power Rankings. So 4 LPL teams, 3 Korean, 2 EU, and 1 from NA. We'll be revisiting these every week to update our Global Power Rankings.